Hey, how's it going? Everybody's jumping over right now.
All right.
And the important part of my medical staff meeting is now completed. I have voted.
Ah,
So my attendance has been recorded. I think I can, it's playing right over here.
I thought that was a beer, Dr. Falk.
I wish our MISC, the lead author, is contact. I have to go edit the paper, so I wanted to come in and say hi before they have
So
to
those of you that are just coming over from the mentoring mixer,
Coffee's empty.
take 5 and go get your beverage of choice. And
Might
then
be a
come
couple-
back.
Couple drops of coffee
Like
left.
walk around, take a bathroom break, and then come back.
We're not talking coffee, Lars, unless you
I'm
got
gonna
to
go
work.
get it. I have a question. Michael Falk, did you go to SLR?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I did residency there. Now I'm there. Scholarship.
So
But I guess I missed you.
I left in 2016. Dan
I joined in 2017.
Dan has a great story for he was a 4th year med student and I mistook him for one of our senior residents. And as I walked through the ER, I Italian dope slapped him to the back of the head. and said, and then I was like, oh crap, I'm sorry. I thought you were doctor. And I just knew he was doing something wrong.
Yeah.
His comment
It's easy to mix.
Sorry.
Oh my God. No, that's okay.
His comment was, I want to come to a program where the attendings slap their residents and stuff like that. So, yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we started that fellowship.
Yeah.
So congratulations. Are you sticking around now or?
I'm actually, it was a lot of back and forth because of the pandemic, but we decided to move back to California. So that's where our families are. So we'll be moving back there. Sad to leave, but.
LA?
In the Bay Area.
Okay.
Yeah. Gonna grab my drink.
Please do. Yeah, everybody just getting here. Take 5 and grab a beverage of your choice. Because it is a happy hour after all.
How are you, Lars?
Good.
What are you drinking?
I'm in my office. I have access to nothing.
Oh, you don't have like
I got
the
the
safety
dregs of my
6-pack?
coffee. I brought it. It's sad.
Do other people keep a 6-pack in their office, or is that just?
I actually got some gifts from residents. I have a bottle of Balvenie up there on the shelf.
That's what I'm saying.
Years ago, I remember a surgeon who used to keep a bottle in his drawer in his office. Not that I'm sure we should suggest that anymore.
I remember pre-med school, I worked in a lab, and Sullivan, this guy was named Sullivan, had this huge lab, and every Friday it was like, it's like, you're coming to the office, 5:30. And he'd break out, some Glenfiddich or something. It's the first time I ever had scotch.
Well, at least you weren't huffing ether.
Like my patient last night. Oh my God, hydrocarbons and
Really?
bad pneumonitis.
Wow, that's like old school. Who huffs that anymore?
Well, he did have schizophrenia, so I guess
Okay. Yeah, I grew up in a time when people used to huff glue.
What's that? Oh yeah, yeah.
Wait, you're almost the same age as me. You must remember those days. Oh.
Getting a zillion text messages.
Not me. I'm just enjoying watching people walk back and forth on Yasmin's virtual background.
Wait, aren't you going to your faculty thing?
I'm at it.
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
in
weird.
these headphones. I'm clearly attending.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, I'm kind of like browsing the PowerPoint that they're talking about. It's cool.
Multitasking.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those that's always during SAEM. So I always miss one of our faculty meetings, like all staff meetings. And yeah, so I'm just able to multitask and be there at the same time tonight.
Are you in a work office too, or did you just set up your home office to look like work?
Oh yeah, this is my home office.
Okay.
Yeah. If the kids are loud in their activities outside the door, you'll hear them.
What are you drinking?
A little bevy.
Oh, I don't want to edit my paper now.
You should just defer it until later.
I can't. We're submitting it tomorrow.
Later tonight.
No, I got to jump on the call. I just came in to say hi to you guys. I told them I was going to be late. I'm technically on vacation, so screw them. If it wasn't going into a big journal and we're going to do a follow-up paper, I would not be here. Or wait, it would not be there. Sorry.
Anyway, so as people come back with their beverages, we'll start kind of dividing up and going in. The idea is it's easier to talk when you have smaller groups, like 4, 5, or 6-ish. And so I have a number of like conversation starters questions about sim life, and we'll kind of divide up. And the first way to divide is according to your current beverage or your beverage of choice if you're in your office without any beverages, Lars. Also, it might be a random selection. I'm learning from Emily, our SAM intern. Emily, could we have people declare what they prefer? That's not incredibly important to which breakout rooms we head into. We might as well start with this group though, and then whoever adds in can be put in one. Is that okay, Emily? I think so. Yeah, she says it'll have to be random. That's fine. So you can declare which beverage you would have picked if we were picking and going into breakout rooms like that. So the plan had been for question 1, it was going to be you had to pick between Shiraz, Hefeweizen, and a Manhattan. Your beverage of choice, whichever one is your style, that's where you were going to go.
Where's the double IPA?
You know, I had to pick a type of beverage, and I picked my own favorite situation. So I picked Hefeweizen, but you know, to each their own. So if double IPA is the closest thing, then you would have picked Hefeweizen. But so I'll tell you and I'll put it in a broadcast too. The conversation starter for this one is you just arrived at a cocktail party, such as this one, and you're standing next to the person who's hiring for the job you just applied for. So practice your elevator speech intro for that person. So, and it's more of we have a chance to get to know each other as well while we're in these groups. So I think I'm going to throw us into 3, Emily. And I think we'll have enough folks that are here for about 10 minutes. Unless I get messages that people want to stay longer, and then we'll go into different random groups.
Cool.
All right.
I think this is great. Hefeweizen for me, but you know, I don't know. Manhattans would like floor me.
I know. You got to be careful with Manhattan. So I think Emily's going to open up our breakout rooms, and then we'll just be plopped. We'll just see how that works. See you guys. Hey again, everybody.
We're back together again.
Yes. Although I think the other people are gonna roll back in just a second. So my next question was gonna be, choose your appetizer between beef Wellington, a hummus platter, or a shrimp skewer.
Definitely not the shrimp skewer. I'm allergic.
Then don't pick that one. But I feel like at all the fancy things that I go to, they have those little tiny like beef Wellington in the pastry shell thing that they look so, you don't know what I'm talking about? It's like a layer flaky pastry shell, and then they like make it into a little wonton looking thing, and then they fry it and cook it in some manner, and then you bite into it and you're like, there's a piece of beef inside of this. Why would they do this? So I'm talking about beef Wellington.
So good.
You know how it's like a fancy cocktail appetizer. So like the next question, we were gonna divide ourselves based on appetizer choice. So I think I have some dry cereal over here somewhere. That's my appetizer for right now. Super fancy
coffee cup.
But Emily, maybe we can actually, these are, if everybody's back, if everybody's back, we can I'll stay in this group. Because I bet these are our folks, right?
Thanks, guys. I have to go bounce and write my MISC paper. So have fun, everyone.
Have fun. We can, I think we can just stay in here because we've got like 8 plus a couple of our MSA folks. My next question was going to be, and we can go with it or we can do something else. If you can pick one thing to highlight from your academic portfolio, what would you choose? Which I think is a good way to get to know each other, because I don't know everybody here very well. And I'm curious what the thing is that you're most excited about in your
hobbies.
What's that?
Hobbies.
You want to talk about hobbies?
Yeah, the hobbies line of your CV. That's the best.
All right.
I don't know. We're gonna be like, oh, my scholarship.
I was gonna say that gets cut in the Yale format CV, so we don't do hobbies.
Yeah, BU doesn't want to know about my hobbies.
Yeah, I don't think I get to put hobbies on.
But that's probably way more fun, honestly, than my dry publishing.
Like, how many papers have you published? Or, oh my goodness.
Or how many things have you done that haven't been published yet, but are on the list?
I don't know, like 20? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well,
I have a little Excel sheet.
Yeah, there's a list. And I think like the coolest project I've done is on that list that's unpublished, but I'd rather like get out the door, but then I have like work telling me to do these things right now. So I'm having, is this a thing that everybody faces? Probably. Yeah. Okay, good.
IRB approval also is just like the bane of my existence. And I appreciate their general idea, but I just don't want to go through the process.
Yes. This is not like my educational did you like it survey is not Nuremberg worthy. Like, yes, totally agree.
Right. And nor am I administering a drug that they care about to anybody.
Try running multiple IRBs.
Yeah. Has anyone
I even learned that in grad school though, because we used to carry local university IRBs and military IRBs, and getting them to agree to put the same IRB on one project was not easy.
I think there seems to be like a little bit of a mental block about IRBs because you get down to it and you do the little shuffle through this process, but I don't know. For me, I find there's like this mental block. Like I don't even want to do that because I'm giving up sort of a sense of control to even get things started. But once you get over that and put one foot in front of the other, you get through.
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like they always come up with some stupid nitpicky thing that doesn't really matter. And even if I copy over, like there's still something. It's to the point that like I want to email them and be like, listen, for my really low hanging, non-recorded, totally anonymous survey-based work, can we come to some sort of agreement where these things are exempt? They're all in the sim labyrinth site too. Like, I don't know.
Well, I want to know how Amish got his through. Did anybody hear him say he had an IRB that said every student ever in any simulated environment?
What?
Go on.
I don't think it would work at my shop, but I feel like the copy paste method that you mentioned, Stephanie, that's my
Yeah.
my go-to. Like, I have something that worked. Like, the very first time I got tons of criticism, they were like, that's not a protocol. And I'm like, you didn't give me an example. So that's the best I could come up with. So then, yeah.
I do wonder. I like the idea. I know I talked with Susie about it, of just being like resident med student attending at my institution, non-recorded, not everything. But then you have to list out all the different procedures and all the different questions that you might ask, which is, I don't know.
And you have to anticipate them in advance and stuff. I feel like it would be challenging because they really do want to look at the questionnaire and the way you recruit and stuff. So that's what I think. I made Amish email it to me one time, and then I looked at it, was like, oh, my IRB wouldn't go for this.
They're so variable, right? Just so
I
variable.
don't think I've ever encountered an IRB that I think would go for that.
Yeah.
You can't be like grounded theory. It's going to be emerging. No? Emergent questionnaire, grounded theory. We're exploring
They still
phenomena.
want the base questions.
Emergent, it's great. Great.
Very dynamic field. It's very dynamic.
This is like a research loophole 101. Great.
Oh my God, yeah. That's a great freaking course. Oh my God. I would totally take that.
My IRB, sorry, like my IRB required 5 months editing because they said, oh, it's a holiday. And I was like, it's December 4th. Like, what's a holiday are we celebrating right now? And they got delayed. And at the end, she was like, oh, I don't know why your project was not exempt. I'm like, you're the one who told me my project is not exempt. I spent 5 months on this. And it's just like my brain exploded. I was like, how could you?
You're looking for rational answers.
No.
I mean, I think it gets down to sort of the individuals that are part of it. I think that's what makes up the variability, but it's frustrating sometimes. I agree.
Oh my God, that's so true, Yasmin. Every day. Stop commenting on my like educational theory.
So one thing that I have found recently that works is setting deadlines for myself. And really, it's a meeting with a mentor of mine that's helping me publish things. And I have to get a certain number of things done by that meeting, and then I will have accomplished the thing. So it's working for a little while so far. I don't know how long I can keep up the whole, I will devote all of the time outside of life to this, because that's the part that's challenging.
How do you do that? Do you just put in a Google Calendar as in like by this day I will finish, or do you have like do you use special app to kind of manage your projects with timelines?
I have a Google form that has all my ideas on it, and I'm like, I'm working on this one and this one right now, and I got to do these 2 things by this day, and then like I'm only 2 months in, so I can't report on too much, but I got some resubmissions in.
That's great, man.
All about having somebody to be accountable to with a deadline.
Yeah.
I started like a group, like a WAG group, like a group work accountability group, and at least it makes me sit down in front of a computer for that 1 hour and getting peer pressure. Yes, I do have to look at it for this 1 hour. But I think we really need a dedicated group of people who come with a similar setting so that they can kind of like make sure that the time is shared. Because I noticed like as the time goes, like, oh, I have a dinner plan. Oh, and it kind of fell apart a little.
But yeah, I always think that's a great question. Like, Is it easier to have like a group of people working on projects separately together, like kind of going through the process together, which is how my doctorate was. Like I had like a peer group with like a chair that we all shared versus like a one-on-one thing, which Sarah, it sounds like you have, which is like the mentor in you. I always struggle with that idea, especially with the fellows, right? Like, do you combine them with other fellows so they kind of shame each other, or or is it direct shaming between you and them? Like, it's kind of hard.
I think that
Anyway.
everyone's different though, and everyone has different things that make them tick and make them accountable, and different projects might be different. And I don't know, me personally, I'll definitely set a timeline, and like if something isn't done by X amount of time, 3 months, whatever, it depends on the project. But then I know that, and if there's like literally nothing done, then it's time to reassess the actual project. Do I not like it? Do other people not like it? Is it already been done? Like, what's the barrier here? And then sometimes it's just good to just reevaluate and scrap it and just start anew if you're not excited about something.
Yeah, I think
Assuming that someone didn't tell you to do it, that is your CEO or something, then maybe you just let it go.
I think it really is important to be passionate about what you're doing, first of all, but then, break it down into little pieces. And in terms of the deadline setting, I think that's helpful. I'm not a good deadline setter, but what I do is have this grid box of most important, least important, or less important, and high priority, low priority. So it sort of channels the stuff I really care about into my focus and one of the 4 boxes, and I sort of hit those as much as I can to clear that box. And while I'm not a great deadline person, it does help me prioritize and move things forward in an efficient way. It's my own thing, but I'm a huge list person. I like lists, but deadlines are hard for me.
I love lists too. My sim team and I just started doing a stoplight report approach about 6 months ago, and it's working out really well. And so then I adapted that for myself too in my own projects. So now it kind of gives us, we have to reevaluate on a monthly basis where we're at with each project. And then if something's been red lit for too long, that's when we go back and reassess and see if this is something that we really want to do. And so I started doing it with my own projects too, and it's really helped. And then once something gets greenlit, then we take the list approach, and again, break it down into small things, put action items in there, and then just keep that going on an email chain and just keep sending it out so that you can fill in the blanks when you do something. And then just reassess the list at every weekly meeting then at that point. So, but it took a while to get that ironed out for sure.
I always feel like, I get stuck when I put too big of a piece in one of my check boxes. And then I realize like, oh, I just got to break that out into several. It's
the same thing. I mean, as sim people, we're all really good at coming up with critical action items. So I just kind of liken it to that too. So it's one of those things where like, if you put in like, it sounds so nerdy, but like, you know how it is if you like give someone else an assessment tool and there's like 5 different things on the exact same line and no one checked the box and you're like, why not? So it's probably because they bit off more than they could chew. So do the same thing with your own work as well. It's just a critical action item that you have to do to pass the SIM.
I love it. It's like a super sim approach to like professional.
Super sim approach. It's very nerdy.
I'm like, why is that still at the red light? Tell me more about that. What's your frame for continuing to be stopping at that light?
If I'm curious, you mentioned your sim team. I haven't talked to you too much. I wonder like what your background is and who's on your sim team that has a chance to meet. Cause I have some sim residents and a fellow, and I'm like, should I have these weekly meetings?
Yeah, so I'm a sim director, and I'm sober because it's only 3 o'clock in California, so I'm probably more nerdy right now than anyone else. But it's after 5 other places, so I know. Yeah.
Still drinking coffee an hour ago.
So I'm a sim director at Kuya Health in Visalia, California, and then I'm a fellowship director as well too. This is actually an off year for our fellowships though. With COVID, it was just too crazy to get 2 slots in there. And so it just didn't happen. So we actually use this as a revamping year, and we're combining our SIM and MedEd fellowship, which has been really fun to revamp that curriculum. So my SIM team is just like my tight knit group. It's just, first it was just me. So those were very effective weekly meetings. And then now I have a SIM tech and a SIM coordinator. And so the 3 of us, that's our like core SIM team. But we've been working on, we just started a SIM committee for the hospital. And so that one we do monthly. And so we have a similar approach to our stoplight reports, and a more macro level. But yeah, for the more micro stuff on a weekly standpoint, it's just me, my SIM tech, and my SIM coordinator. So that's my SIM team. And then when we have fellows, this year, I think it's going to be different. Last year, I had 2 SIM fellows, and so they were a part of those weekly meetings, and we would give them action items just like everyone else on the team. But next year, I think we're going to revamp it a little bit because I already know our fellow has kind of more med-ed type goals, and so I don't know if incorporating her in the weekly meetings is going to be effective for her goals. So. Sorry, I feel like that was a really long answer. Did that answer your question, Sarah?
Yeah, no, I'm mostly curious kind of like what other people are working with and amidst and all that kind of stuff.
We have yeah, go ahead.
No. Go.
Ours, we have like a weekly SIM meeting with our SIM residents. We have like a track of residents. And so they'll come, like, we'll give them the first 15-20 minutes to present like ideas and projects that they're interested in. And then we spend the rest of the time as a committee with like the fellows and our fellowship director and our SIM director to kind of organize our thoughts. We this year created like monthly SIM conference, and that became so much, and it took up so much of our time to get like faculty buy-in. And then after January, made it every other month to just like, so all of our meetings weren't just about the SIM conference, and so that we could work on other projects. But yeah, I think finding how to allocate your time during meetings to like brainstorm that you have all these creative people, and then do separately like deliverables and action items is something that we are constantly trying to balance, because we're all like, we're here together on this one day that we happen to all be off this afternoon because we requested off, but like balancing creative ideas versus like doing these like paperwork stuff that we have to do. I think that's the struggle that we constantly try to balance.
It's funny too. I feel like now that we're getting so organized, Yasmin, then I wonder if you've encountered this too. Now we're actually getting, we're a new team. So both of my staff was just hired. One actually got started like right before COVID started. The other one got started in May. So we're just about a year, like a little over a year together. And now we finally are at the point where we're getting more efficient with working together. And now it's getting to the point where like a few weeks, we've actually kind of scrapped the meetings just because we already had the agenda. We already had the checklist. We already went through the stoplight report on our own time. Nobody had any questions. So we're like, maybe we don't do a meeting. And then it kind of turned into like, now, well, since we were so effective on our own, maybe we should celebrate our successes, and then we do a team happy hour instead of like team meeting, and then that's really fun. So yeah, so it's interesting. And then it kind of just begs the question, which I feel like everyone started to ask themselves when COVID happened, of, do you really need a meeting? Do you need an email? Do you need to be there? Do you need to be live? Do you need to be virtual? And so then it was just a whole other can of worms that yeah. I don't know if anyone else ran into that trap too.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I think. Go ahead, Lars.
No, after you.
Yeah, I think that's a very common problem, Kim. So we kind of had to scrap our meetings, went virtual, and then now I'm struggling with, do we go weekly meeting, but then alternate our research meetings like every other week with our operational meeting every other week? So that was my question. How do you keep your research projects going? Because King's has like a million projects, but no one has the initiative to publish on these things, obviously, if you're not on top of it. So yeah, I think it's a very good question.
How do you keep residents on top of writing if they're academically minded? I'm struggling a lot with this and how much to. I mean, you can't make someone do something, right? So it's me. It's me doing all the EMs and stuff and coordination. I'm happy to help them. I've learned basically they have great ideas and I can help them simify it with. That's probably the most efficient way to make use of everything, of all of our skills. But then I'd love to write up some of this, but like they're just pausing. And I tried, like I struggle with writing too, so I like break it down and I'm like, here's our steps, and let's at least get an outline. And then like I set a deadline, so we meet, and then it fails, and then it fails, and then it fails, and then after I just did this. I was like, listen, this is a great idea. I think it definitely deserves a meta portal write-up. You are a busy person. You just need to be honest about whether or not you have time for this. I will write when you write, but I have 500 other things I'm doing, so I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I think setting deadlines and putting it in their court. I haven't had a lot of success with this yet. Oh, actually, no, I did publish something with a now former resident that Janice knows, or we resubmitted it. So hopefully it'll get in soon. And it was just like, she was really driven in that she's like, I want to write this. I want to do this program. I was like, okay, we'll do it. And then we did it. And then the publication this is how you do it. And then the second planned publication I did the survey for this year, and I'll include her because she's still involved in SIM and stuff, on hopefully a second publication. But the first author ended up being me. And I think that like, if it's worth doing yourself, or if it's worth doing, it's also potentially worth doing yourself. And it has to rise to that level of importance and be like the more publishable thing that you have on the burners to really like get there, I think. I don't know.
No, I totally agree. And I think that, I don't know, maybe I'm just miss tough love, but at the end of the day, they're adults, and you have to just set the expectations at the beginning. And then if it's something that's important to you, there might be some soft projects, that you don't really care if they get off the ground, or maybe you're just kind of like in the super like last author, even not even an author, just kind of the reviewer, just to read through something, make sure it's okay. And then, whatever, it's for them. But if we're talking about that like super important project that you're really into doing, I think it's a matter of having that you just got to set the expectation from the beginning. So in your first meeting with them, create the list of action items together, come up with those things, talk about how it's going to work, let them know how big this is going to be, let them know just figure out what they want, what makes them excited. And if it's not the project for them, give them permission to say, this is a lot of stuff that we're talking about here. There's a lot of really specific deadlines. I know we had case in point, we had a time sensitive COVID related case report that I saw with a resident. And so talked with her right afterwards. And I was like, hey, I think this is really good. It's interesting, it's COVID, but it's time sensitive, and just wait, in a week, 10 more people are going to have the exact same encounter. So we got to get this out there. And I totally understand if you can't take that on. But if you'd like, I'll take it on then. And then, we'll just kind of switch the authorship. And she's like, nope, I'm on it. And then sure enough, within 2 days, I had a document, I had all this stuff, and it was fantastic. And then she gets first author. I did all the rest of the work for her. She loved it. None of the journals liked it, but and then I made sure to act on it, and I at least got her a poster out of it because she did so much freaking work for this stupid paper. And we're still trying. We got a few other. I know it was apparently way cooler for other people or for me than it was for the journals. But I think I think it's part of it too, and it's just setting the expectations from the beginning and just seeing, and then asking yourself, if you notice that this is happening with multiple people, then just kind of check out to see like what is like, ask yourself why things are failing. So ask yourself, is this the resident? Is this something I know I was too passive with my fellows my first year of doing it. And so I noticed that like month by month would go by. And now I notice the same thing happening sometimes with my coordinator. And so I learned to be more, I used to be a little too laissez-faire, I think. And now I learned that it's okay to have deadlines. It's okay to have expectations. And yeah, and it's okay to not too if you really don't care. But I would notice that I was getting angry about stuff not happening. And so I realized that it actually did matter to me. And so I had to actually say it. So
I think the other thing that we run into, and whatever level, it could be the students that are involved, it could be the residents that are involved, but is also assessing where they're going to need help, particularly when it's manuscript preparation, because not everybody I've discovered is really, some people are far further along and equipped to just sit down and do it on their own. And some people are going to need some help in terms of operationalizing it. So I think that that's a little bit of it too, because if you just give people deadlines, but if there's a block somewhere along the line that they don't feel as prepared for, I feel like that's when they start missing things.
Can I ask
and
you
then to
guys?
give them permission. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No. I just have.
Oh, I was just gonna
completely.
just to piggyback off of that really quickly, just to give them, I've learned to start to give them 2 deadlines. So like, I want this done by this date. And hey, if you know, I totally understand that this is a big ask. There's a lot of stuff going on here. And so if you're noticing that like literally nothing is happening, or you get to the point where you don't know what to do, let me know by this date. And it's like a week before. So especially for like time sensitive workshops or something, we've all had that where like the day before someone tells you, hey, I can't do this. And you're like, oh my God, I can't do it either. I'm working clinically and this is terrible. So have that date in mind of you have permission to say no, but you got to let me know by this day, or let me know and then I can get you more guidance, another paper with a nice template on there or some example as to what I would like done. So I think several deadlines in there, like a fail-safe deadline too, for when stuff goes wrong.
We all
Sorry, Janice.
track, or Janice, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I have a completely different question. So
Mine's really short. We have like a track for the residents that they can join. Like, you're interested in global health, you're interested in SIM, you're interested in ultrasound, and they get like I don't know, just more passionate, and they're like, okay, I'm part of this group and I want to deliver this. It's also really hard. Residents are exhausted and burnout is real.
Also asynchronous, like Google Docs, just to track how things are going. So if you see like they haven't been in the Google Doc for a week or 2, you know that they're either too busy or they don't care. So you can just send them a text and be like, hey, is everything okay? Or, you know, what's up? And then check in by that deadline. That's been super helpful. So asynchronous platforms has been.
But hashing out what asynchronous platform they like. Are they someone that likes text, emails, Google Docs? Let them pick how they function. A phone call, because some people just, they don't like paper stuff. They don't, Slack. Let them tell you. I don't, who knows? I know, right? I feel already.
Or is it better to have the same thing the whole time?
Maybe, but then it's like, it's just kind of a game of how much do you want to determine for your learners and how much do you want them to take on the reins. But yeah, you definitely could end up with like 7 different platforms. Yeah.
That would
Just
be
keep
my
those
life.
to what you want.
I've done it all. Google Docs, Teams, Slack, like.
For some reason, every project team wants a different platform.
dinner. I have a question for you guys, because there's so many fellowship directors here. Just wondering how how you got to be where you are. Just kind of general advice. I'm finishing my SIM fellowship. I don't have a clear 5-10 year plan, but then I really loved working with my fellowship director. I met so many great people who are fellowship directors. So I'm curious in that route as my career for future. So I'm just curious to hear how you guys get there. What do you guys like? What you guys don't like?
I think I'm one of the more junior fellowship directors, so I'm gonna let other people say it first.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure too. But ironically, I got my job because of a happy hour and one that I was attending that I didn't think I was actually looking for a job. So I had one too many martinis and I was talking to everybody. And one of them ended up being my future boss and she liked it. So it worked out well. But my husband's an ER doctor too. And we timed it. I was a year ahead of him in I feel like you have to do like med school math for this one. I was a year ahead of him in med school, and then I went to a 3-year residency. He went to a 4-year residency. So then I did a 2-year fellowship. So we graduated at the same time. And I thought I wanted like a just solely university-based academic job. I was on the like academic track, and he wanted all community. So we both work for 280 now. Every year they do a senior residence day in Chicago, and so they pay for. It was a shameless plug. They pay for residents and graduating fellows to go, and it's a free trip to Chicago where I'm from. And so I was like, done, let's go. They'll pay for it. All I have to do is like sit through, a couple lectures on how to take care of your money and all that stuff. And that sounds great. So we did. And then I was like the relaxed one that, didn't really care. And so I ended up talking to my boss who happened to be looking for a SIM person. And I just graduated my SIM fellowship. And then in the meantime, the medical director was talking to my husband, and then all 4 of us ended up linking up, and it worked out really, really, really well. And so then they ended up hiring both of us, which worked out awesomely because the place is a great mesh of community and academics. And ultimately, I like some of the community stuff, and he really likes all the academic stuff. And so it ended up just being one of those kind of beautiful serendipitous moments. So it was great.
Awesome.
And then they hired me, and I said I want to be a fellowship director. They didn't have one. Sorry, I forgot where that was going. So they hired me as a SIM director, and then I said yes, but I want a fellowship too. And they said okay, and so I said okay, and it was awesome.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I was going to jump in there on what Kim was saying. I had but elements of what I wrote in the chat are sort of like in her story that she described, somebody's got to sponsor you at some point, right? They got to invest and sort of see you as someone who contributes to that organization or that center or that place or wherever you are. And then you've got to also, I found it myself, I had to overcome an imposter syndrome. So that way, I belong in that spot. I have that seat at the table is one that I can sit at, and so I had to really believe that I belong there, because you don't feel you belong, then you won't ever sit there at the table with everyone else. And then you need someone to sort of recognize that you do belong as well. So it's a little bit of both. But usually we put walls in front of ourselves and we limit our own, development. Taking the leap of faith then to know that you'll be uncomfortable in those early moments. It's funny because I just came off of a mentoring mixer at my organization. So we were saying the same sort of stuff. It was amazing how it came up. So for me, I had to try to find, well, how could I get some expertise? And what was that? Because I came out at a time where simulation, some of the others on the call know my trajectory a little bit, but I graduated residency in 2000. And by 2002, I got designated as the person who was going to try to figure out this mannequin that we just got from a grant that I wrote in geriatrics. And I was like, it was like a 5-page nothing grant, but nevertheless, so this thing shows up with all these wires, and I'm not a tech person. I got to figure it out. And then from there, how do we integrate it into the residency curriculum? Because that was my true role, was like an APD. And then, spent the, 15 or so years in trying to figure that out. And then, but that catapulted from a position in a residency with one simulator to the organization sort of recognizing who the early stakeholders and adopters of simulation. And so I caught the field in an arc when it was sort of early, like where ultrasound was probably like 15 or 20 years ago. And then became a medical director of a center, but worked the way up the ranks. Was an assistant medical director, was a stakeholder, just somebody who used the place a lot, and then went up from there. So maybe the last one that I wrote in the chat was trying to understand your world you live in. With the fellows that I have, I give them an exercise where I ask them to describe and find their place in their world. So I ask them to map out where it is they feel they exist professionally within all the the places that they interact with. So for example, SAEM is a community of practice, but it's part of your professional life. But so maybe that would, in a diagram or a Venn diagram, that would be a circle somewhere. And then you'd have your organization or your hospital, your institution. And just understanding trying to find out who are the players. I found that I happen to listen a lot and sort of observe, and you could see who the formal leaders are in an organization or a group, and then you can see who the informal ones are. And I sort of found out how to navigate through there. I don't know what that is I only know what that is for my organization and like what my role in it, and I'm biased by what I see. So I'm not even sure I'm right, but trying to sort of check myself to say, wow, is my interpretation of the dynamics here correct? And if they seem correct, then you can sort of navigate through, and it seemed to work for me. So I think that's a cool exercise to do. So I'd say, wow, try that one. Draw out your map where you are, along with the other things.
Thank you.
I love what Mike said. I think similar to me, I think I'm a hybrid. Like there was someone before me and there happened to be a vacancy and I actually filled it. I was actually in medical education prior. So my trajectory has always been in education. So it kind of made sense to go into simulation. I was probably the second formally trained sim person. And they told me, even as an attending, so I was already an attending, they were like, oh, if you want that position, you need to be formally trained. So I was forced into a fellowship while I was an attending, and I told them I wasn't going to take a pay cut. So I did a full load of shifts while getting my fellowship, which was challenging. And then I felt the way Mike Cassera talked about it. Like I felt like it was still lacking because it was a period of time people really didn't have really good formal training programs. So I pursued a doctorate in education on top of that as an attending. So I don't recommend that fully to anyone, but please don't write that down. But it gave me such a love of the nerdy pieces that Cassera and I enjoy, which is educational theory. And so it's really about, I love what Mike says about really finding you, right? What you love and what, you know, you need in your life and how you define it. And then creating that space. So it's not about working towards a job. It's about creating that job that's perfect for you, right? That makes you happy. And if that happens to be being a sim director, that job still is so amorphous, right? Because being a sim director could be anything, right? Because sim fellowships can be quality and safety, could be research focused, could be resident education, could be so many things. So you really need to still do a lot of personal development on what that means for you. But I think a lot of us, I hate saying this, but a lot of us older folks kind of got dropped in a time where we had to figure out the formal training part, but still we continue to develop that passion of like what it means. And I think that piece of what Cassera said is true no matter what stage you're in.
So I can chime in actually, because I was probably at the beginning of when fellowships became a more widespread thing. I graduated my fellowship in 2016. And then I stayed at my fellowship site, but my fellowship was joint between my site and another site. And so I came out and the fellowship director was over my site and her site. And, you know, right away I was like, well, I can do this site. That's no problem. I'll be a fellowship director. She was like, no. I'm like, right. That's what I meant. And then like about 2 years later, my chair's like, now you're ready. He's like, we're going to separate our sites. It's going to be like this whole thing. And now like we remain very collegial, but after several years of experience, starting our own residency simulation program, doing a bunch of faculty sim, being involved in the medical college for simulation, all these different pieces of sim that I said yes to, that I was like, well, at least I said no to that one thing that was teaching that didn't have sim involved in it, because I had to say no to something. After a couple of years, my chair was like, we're going to host this fellowship at our institution now. And so that's how I became fellowship director. My chair was basically like, it's time. and you have the formal training. And so now you're going to be in charge of it. So I had that like directive, but also the formal training behind it. But I think like there are additional things that I could do to make my understanding of med ed and med ed research better. But life.
Can I also add that it's not only the formal training of SIM education, but it's also with the fellowship director role or any kind of leadership role that you want to take on, whether it's the director of a division of simulation, which I think some of us also share. Keep in mind there's politics, and you're a leader. So I think Haru Okuda gave me the best bit of advice, which was, damn, if I could do one more degree, it would be an MBA. Like, there's a lot of business, and Sarah, as the treasurer, you know this. I mean, there's a lot of business stuff like balance sheets and money and politics that you're just not aware of, that I think a lot of these leaders deal with. So keep that in mind. Something I think a lot of us wish we had a little bit more training in, and I love that, Sarah, that your chair had the insight to be like, you're not ready yet, give it a little time. And because I think the worst thing my vice chair of education did to me was drop me in and give me a title that probably I wasn't ready for, but I thought I was ready for. I felt so like Sarah. I was like, drop me in, coach, I'm ready. But like, you know, emotionally and mentally and leadership wise, you're not ready. So yeah, I think that's another bit of advice I'd like to just drop in there.
I think you guys like kind of touching on that. I find that like when I was doing the job search and even at my own place, kind of pitching this to chairs or like admin high up people to get buy-in and be like, you deserve this allocated time, you deserve these allocated resources, money. How do you guys like kind of navigate those obstacles to be like, SIM is important and vital, and like to get more resources as opposed to like doing a bunch of things on your own time? And yeah.
You have to learn what matters to them. In general, for a C-suite, it's going to be dollars and cents, but there's always a little X factor for someone, like someone that has a humanity background, or maybe someone that's not doing so well with their own little group, like a CEO that's on their way out or something, and so they need a little something extra to save face. You know, it's all part of there's always an org chart, and then there's a hidden org chart, and I feel like you have to find all those nuances in the hidden org chart to figure out how to get there and how to get in and get that X factor. And then yeah, ROI, dollars and cents, typically speaks well to everybody, but again, it just depends on who you're talking to. And so I'd encourage you just to continue to find, there's always a way to translate something into dollars and cents, whether that be a little bit more abstract versus a little bit more concrete. And so it's really important just to get that going. And then the same way that you would change a consult about a patient from like the medicine attending that's taking the patient upstairs versus the surgery attending that's taking the appy to the OR, you're also going to change your pitch depending on who you're talking to. So it's just really key to know who it is, those little things just to switch in there, and have a lot of prep beforehand.
Yeah, I jump on top of that. We had a chair change probably around 2014 to 15, and then the educational leadership at our residency also changed as well. And so, yeah, what was our organization, or at least the ED that I work in, that piece of the organization the hat that I wear there. Yeah, we had we went from being like a community hospital that at its heart that blossomed into a pretty busy academic community ED to getting a chair who was from a traditional university-based Ivy League research center that had major grant funding. And so obviously like that was like culture shock to most of us who were not on tenure tracks and had appointments. And some of us, like I was very interested in getting, going up the ranks, and understood what it is, but most of my partners did not. And so, we had to sort of flip, like, well, how do we show value of simulation? And then obviously there's a hidden curriculum piece. I'll throw in that for a second. But the to show value was we had to pivot. Like the currency that this person spoke, or what they valued the most was research, manuscripts, grants. So it's only been a couple of years. We needed to build some infrastructure in our own little SIM division, and just among us, we had to have a mindset. And we just built the fellowship at the same time, so we had to recalibrate. How do we sort of do we're learning, how to build the fellowship in a way that would make sense. But we've sort of put the emphasis on the scholarship and the research, and we've entered it much more earlier in our program, and that's driven, the fellowship has been the rally point around everyone else in our division, I guess, if we have a division. And so we've shown that we can generate, and through SAEM and other sorts of places, that we can, get on papers and participate in collaborations. They've all been external mainly to our organization, and now we're trying to bring lessons learned back home. So we had to get those win-wins and do that. And so that was one way to do it. The hidden message was when COVID hit, at least the ED, and maybe even a larger organization, they shut down. First of all, they took all the people at the organizational SIM center and they redeployed them to do things like swabbing, the fact of the staff and all of that. So they basically shut down the center and redeployed them for clinical support. In terms of the ED, they shut down the simulation program. They basically graduated the fellows 2 months early, and then they hired them back, and then they had them work lots of shifts. And that was not really such a nice thing. They've landed very well through that experience, but that was not a good time to be there to say that we were one of the fellowships that was going to get shut down and not continue, even though we clearly had stuff that we could have done to help support the mission, including testing out those stupid plexiglass boxes that they tried to put in our place. I spent about 2 hours and I system stressed that, and I said, I'm not using this, and you shouldn't either. At least the version that we had. So yeah, they did a lot of that stuff, and yet coming out of that, what we did is we took that time in COVID and pumped out stuff. And so we had to do a report out, and they said, we want the SIM division, which is not a division, but they want us to report out to everybody in the whole service line of academic EM at my place. And then we were able to show them that, hey, we have a trajectory of increased applications, increased scholarship, increased publications, and all the things that this chair would look at, we put out there. And I started jumping in on the research committees, just like the e-research consultations. And this is where sometimes like having a little bit of training could help, like the idea that there were no qualitative mixed methods experts in the department anywhere. So I could just sort of spew out some sort of stuff. I would just channel Jane or Sarah or, some of the others that I've heard. I would just cut their lines and just throw them in the meeting. And then they would say, wow, we don't understand what that is. And I'm like, well, that's why you need us, because we can do this we can support the research and scholarship, even if it's not SIM. We can just do the methodology. So those win-wins sort of make you attractive. Now we have to make good on it. Like our chair is now suddenly sort of, we gotten his attention. And I think that they're linking us up. They're making connections with us and the critical care division, the ultrasound division. We're getting into test training, and we're doing all the stuff that we normally would do at SIM, but they want us to do it in real stuff, but it's still the same method. So we'll jump on because they can get the dollars, and we can sort of jump on as the co-collaborators and maybe even get our papers out of it too.
And Michael, I think you just touched on something really important. Do you guys know of like the 5 main styles of conflict management, where it's like on the X and Y axes, where there's like collaborative and then how aggressive you want to be. And so like you could either be like totally not collaborative but really aggressive, which is like the bully. That's like the competitive style. There's the avoidance style, the collaborative style, like all that stuff. But basically when you really look at it, I feel like everything is always just all about collaboration, because all you have to do is redefine what you want, like what you want going into it. Because a lot of times it might be, depending on whatever situation you're going in, you might think that you want completely different things, but at the end of the day, each one of you wants one thing and it may be totally different, and then you just come at it to make it the same. And so I feel like that's part of it too, but just creating that win-win situation, because you just have to redefine exactly what you want, and it might be a little bit different than what you think. It might be a little bit different than what they think too. And so it's just kind of redefining that. So yeah, from the Thomas Kilmann conflict resolution, thank you. And I don't know, I kind of argue that there's none of the other 4. It's all just collaboration at the end of the day. Compromising really, probably, yeah, but still. It's so sim of me, I know. Sorry. So
Totally
sim.
true. Funny.
I was gonna just say, like Kim, you mentioned something, and I thought it was like the Thomas Kilman like conflict resolution inventory or something like that. We have a professional development center at our place, and so maybe your organizations or universities have that. And so I had access to all of these for free. I took a Myers-Briggs, I took a Thomas Kilman, I took a crucial conversation course, and I took emotional intelligence. That one was pretty cool because that comes from an MBA world. And so if you have a chance to take one of these and just see where you are, I learned a lot. I went to the same place for my master's that Jane got her doctorate from. So I don't know, Jane, if you did this, but one of the things they asked us to do is an assignment in the leadership section, although this can be risky at your place. You'd have to see if you want to do this or not, but I did it. I said, screw it, I'm gonna do it. I had to interview 6 stakeholders and I had to interview myself in the third person. I had to come up with a survey protocol, do it in third person, interview them, record it. These were like 45-minute interviews. And I used the model of, Jane will laugh because she knows my style. I thought of the model of the emotional intelligence, and I used that as a framework for developing the questions on the inventory. And then I asked these people, tell me about Michael's self-management. Tell me about Michael's social management. Tell me about, I would say it like that, and I recorded myself. And then I had to transcribe it. I didn't know how to pay somebody to transcribe it myself. So I did that for hours. And then I had to code it out, which I didn't know what to do. And then, but I learned a lot about how people saw me, but you have to be careful. Like, I mean, I did my associate chair, I did my chief learning officer, I did my residency coordinator, and then I took the residents and I got their evaluations and I coded out the text evaluations from New Innovations or whatever at the time. And I learned quite a bit about myself, and I don't know that I've corrected, but at least I can live with myself. I don't know. You might, if you do that, maybe that's a way of understanding where your weaknesses and strengths. Like I learned about my style. I think I'm too accommodating. I roll over to avoid conflict. So I'm easy to work with, so that's good. I think.
Yeah, I think that's the scariest assignment in the leadership block. I think it's almost like our final assignment because it's like the 360 review, and it's like therapy on steroids, and you have to write it out. So it's like the worst thing ever. So terrible, but it's very insightful. So I mean, if your place actually has access to coaches, executive coaches, that's also another way to do this as well.
Awesome. That sounds like a huge time commitment that I'm not sure when I would fit into my life. But awesome. So we're running up against 6:30. I don't want to keep anybody super long. But I really enjoyed our conversation. And actually I challenge you. So I made us a little Google Doc because I like Google Docs. And I challenge you to put your email in it. That's not a very hard thing, but put your email in it and reach out to somebody that you met here, and just say, hey, and it was nice talking to you, or something similar. Hold on, I'm getting you the link right now. And then you can connect. So it's always important to try and like take these connections like out into life instead of being like, who is that one person that I talked to that one time? Yeah, but thank you everybody for being here and being part of it and listening and talking and all of the above.
Thank you, Sarah.
It was so nice to meet everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Likewise.
you. Great meeting you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.